Yes guys, so I just wanted to jump on quickly and talk about how Rent to Rent can help you escape the 9 to 5, quit the 9 to 5. Rent to Rent is a business model that allows you to work a couple hours a day at most, and you can replace the average salary from a few Rent to Rent properties within your first 6 months of starting the business. Some people have done it even quicker than that, but for myself it took me around 6 months from starting the business to replace the average salary in the UK, and I then went on to make around £5,000 a month by the end of my first year from my Rent to Rent portfolio. And nowadays I teach people how to do exactly the same, right? And over the last 4 years I've been perfecting a program, a system that duplicates what I've done and allows people to replace their income and control properties that they don't own, and make money from them, right? So over the last 4 years we've been developing the program, and it's improved significantly, like anything does if you feed it and water it and nurture it over a sustained period of time. And in this video I just wanted to discuss some of my Rent to Rent success students, tell their stories, and hopefully if you're watching this then you get inspired and motivated to change your situation, because you don't have to stay stuck in your 9 to 5, especially if it's making you unhappy. You should have the choice. You do have the choice, but first you have to believe that you can do it, right? I think when we grow up through school, sometimes into university, we're kind of taught to do what our parents have done and work a job, save money, maybe buy a house, which is becoming more and more difficult for millennials and people younger than that. But we're taught to earn money from a salary and trade time for money by working 8 hours a day, 40, 50 hours a week. And I did this for periods in my life, but it never sat well with me. It never made me feel fulfilled. I always felt like there was more to life than that. I always felt like I could achieve more, but I never knew how, right? And you need to find a business model that allows you to make money without you necessarily needing to work 8 hours, 40, 50 hours a week on that business to make money, right? And for me it was Rent to Rent. That was the breakthrough moment for me, and hopefully it can be for you too, you know, because there's nothing special about me, there's nothing uniquely different about me than most people, other than the fact that I'm quite determined and ambitious. I've also helped many of my students do the same and succeed from Rent to Rent, and I guess a shared trait that we all have is that we're quite ambitious and we don't want to conform and work the typical 9 to 5. We value our time more, and we want to spend our time doing what we enjoy, you know, like for example here I am, midday on a Friday, and I'm making content because I enjoy making content, and it's what I want to do. I can go for a walk after I've made this video. I can spend time with my son, who's actually asleep in the other room at the moment. That's why I'm talking quite low, so I don't wake him up. So if you see me run off, then it's because he's woken up. But yeah, my point is having the option, being able to spend your time how you choose to spend your time, is ultimately what I think creates a feeling of control in your life and happiness, you know. I wake up every day with a smile on my face, and I work for a couple hours maybe, making some content, checking in with my lettings manager for my rent-to-rent business, making sure everything's okay. And then I go about my day, you know. I go to the gym, I might read a couple chapters of a book. I spend time with my son, which is the best time I could ever spend, really, you know. And it gives me a feeling of content and satisfaction to know that I built this business 8 years ago and now it works for me, rather than me having to go to work to trade time for money. The business that I built, the systems, the employees, the team make money for me, and I get to spend my time, the majority of it anyway, with my family, and also making content for you guys, which also grows my consultancy business as well, right? So it's been a journey, and there's no reason why you can't do this too. So just to speak about some of my successful students and where they were when we first started working together compared to where they are now. I've got a list here of all of them. So I'll just run you through a few of the stories, and hopefully it can inspire and motivate you. So the first person that comes to mind is Esther. I started working with Esther 2021-ish. She was a fully qualified nurse. She'd been climbing up the ladder in her job, going from 25 grand a year to 30 grand a year, 35 grand a year. And when I first spoke to her, she said to me that she felt very much like she was stuck in this job, in a sense where she kept doing exams and qualifications to get to the next level, and she'd earn an extra 4 or 5 grand a year once she reached those next levels. But the job was very demanding, as I'm sure you can imagine, being a nurse. Very demanding on her time. She had a young family, I think 3 children, and she wasn't getting to spend much time with them. And when we first spoke, her main sort of motivation for starting her rent-to-rent business was to replace her income so she could spend more time raising her young family, you know, which I thought was admirable. But I think that strong reason why is actually why she succeeded. So anyway, we started working together. I was coaching her. She started going on viewings, speaking to landlords, making offers. She got turned down quite a few times. I remember her messaging me saying she had to pull over on the motorway on the way to a viewing because she was breastfeeding one of her youngest children, and then getting back on the road and going and doing the viewings. So she was actually doing the viewings with her 3 kids. If you can imagine trying to build a business with 3 young children, it sounds crazy, right? But where there's a will, there's a way. And that's why I find Esther's story so inspirational, even to myself. And I've had a lot of messages from other people who found her story inspirational too. So yeah, she got her first rent-to-rent deal in Croydon. I think in her first month she made around £1,200 profit. And then she's never looked back from there, really. Since then she's gone on to get another rent-to-rent deal in Kent. And nowadays she does, she buys HMOs in Coventry, in areas, in the surrounding areas up there, and raises finance and buys HMOs, does them up, and then revalues them, refinances them, pulls out the capital and goes again, rolls it into another deal, right? So she's gone from rent to rent into property development, basically. But it all started from her strong reason why, and building her rent-to-rent business, which replaced her income, allowed her to quit her job as a nurse, which then gave her more time to focus on her property business. And then she's gone on to learn how to do development, and which I think she did go and do some education and probably paid a mentor to teach her, but she had the time to go and do that, right, because she had replaced her income from a couple rent-to-rent properties. So that's her story. She's doing really well now, and she was one of my first sort of real success stories. So if you're watching this, Esther, then well done to you. We're still very proud of you. The next person I can think of is Majid. Majid was a restaurant owner in Cardiff, Wales. We started working together three odd years ago now, and he was a busy restaurant owner working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks sometimes. He owned a couple of properties, but they weren't making him enough to be able to not do the restaurant business. So when we first started working together, he wanted to know how he could find more landlords, how to pitch rent-to-rent to them. And that's what we focused on for the first few weeks. And he got off to a great start. You know, he took in the information really well. He got his first few rent-to-rent deals within, I think 3 months or 6 months, I can't remember now. And just from those first few deals, he was already pretty much making what he was making from his restaurant business, whilst only working a couple of hours a day. So I think he realised quite quickly that rent-to-rent was the way to go in terms of having more time. Again, you know, he wanted to spend more time with his family, and just not be working all the time. You know, I think sometimes when we start businesses, especially like in the catering industry where it's very time intensive, rent-to-rent for Majid was a real saviour really, and it allowed him to replace his income as a restaurant owner. And nowadays, I spoke to him I think last year, and he's actually quit his restaurant business and just focuses on rent-to-rent now because it's easier for him to do. He works a couple hours a day, spends the rest of the time with his family, and yeah, rent-to-rent's really helped him, and it's allowed him to quit a very busy, stressful business and build a relatively passive business where he works a couple of hours a day and makes more than what he was making as a restaurateur. So he's done really well. Another example of someone who was a busy self-employed person, basically, busy business owner, and frustrated, stressed. And even when I spoke to him on Zoom, I could see that, you know, he was so much healthier in terms of how he looked and how much happier he was from his rent-to-rent business. So it was really cool to see. So he's been another great example of how rent-to-rent can really change your life and allow you to make money without being so stressed and working all the time, right? So that's Majid's story. The next person I can think of is Milad and Sam. These guys, when we started working together a few years ago, really took the bull by the horns. Two brothers, both worked in banking. Again, another industry where there's a high demand on your time. You're working 40, 50-hour weeks. These two guys joined the program. We got straight to work, and within their first year, they were making, I think, between £10,000 and £15,000 profit from their rent-to-rent portfolio. So they really grabbed the concept and understood it and implemented everything that I asked them to do, and they more than replaced their incomes, and they both quit their jobs since then. I think one of them's got married, and yeah, they're doing really well. Again, motivated people, ambitious, but realised that their time was more important to them than making the money at their job, and they chose to start a business that allowed them to work less and make more, you know. And they've just gone from strength to strength, and you can see all of these stories on my YouTube channel, guys, by the way. There's a dedicated playlist on my YouTube channel for rent-to-rent success students, so just click on that and you can watch all of these stories and hear from my success students themselves. But yeah, Sam and Milad, 15 grand a month, I think, was their peak. I think they had 14 rent-to-rents in their first sort of 12 to 18 months. They were operating in the Essex area, and yeah, they just done really, really well. So yeah, another example of people who, normal people, busy working professionals who chose to create a business that allowed them to work less time, and actually make more money than they were making in their jobs, you know. So Sam and Milad, another great example of people who quit the 9 to 5 from their rent-to-rent business. The next person is, who have we got here? Amit. Amit, you'll see him on my YouTube channel. He's one of my favourite students that I've worked with. His story was really cool. He was actually working for Uber Eats when he started his rent-to-rent business, and the reason he was actually doing or working for Uber Eats was so that he could stay flexible. I think he was in recruitment prior to that, and it was either recruitment or some sort of finance or banking, I can't remember, but it was a busy working professional job where good income but very demanding on his time. He used to work in London, I think, and his family were based in Bolton, and I remember him saying to me that he was finding it difficult to get the time off to go and see his family, and that was a main motivator for him starting his rent-to-rent business, because he enjoys seeing his family and his parents and stuff. And you know, none of our parents are getting any younger, right, and we only have a limited time with them. So if your job is not allowing you to see your family much, then that's something you should definitely consider, because you know, family is the most important thing in life, and yeah, a job shouldn't take you away from seeing your loved ones, right? There's something not quite right about that. So yeah, that was a big motivation for Amit. That's why he wanted to start his rent-to-rent business, and he started working for Uber Eats just to be flexible so that he could make money, pay the bills, but then also be able to go and do his viewings and negotiate with landlords, and build his rent-to-rent business. And over sort of a 6 to 12 month period, he replaced his income from a few rent-to-rents in Bolton, and since then he's gone from strength to strength. He messaged me the other day, he's just taken on another 9-bed rent-to-rent, big HMO. And I joke with him all the time. I call him the King of Bolton, because he's really picked up momentum up there, and he's found his patch. And I think nowadays, you know, his business is making sort of 5, 6, maybe even 7 grand a month profit. And it all came from that initial thought of starting his own rent-to-rent business. And yeah, once he started working with me, he just went from strength to strength. So another great success story, another example of someone who is just like you, probably watching this video. He was working for Uber Eats, and now he's, you know, probably making the best part of 60, 70 grand a year profit from a business that only demands 2 hours a day of work from him. So another great example, right, of someone who's quit their 9 to 5 from rent to rent. Who else have we got? Let me give you some recent examples of people who we've helped do this year, right? So we've got Leon and Rebecca. We started working with Leon and Rebecca only a few months ago. They were both actually not working at the time when we first started working together on their rent-to-rent business, which has worked out in their favour really, because they've both been able to really throw themselves into starting their business and getting off the ground, right? So when you're not working, people would sometimes look at that as like a negative or almost be ashamed of. But when they told me that they're both unemployed when we first spoke on our first call, I actually thought immediately, okay, well that's great, because you can go all in on this, because you've got the time, right? And that's exactly what they've done. Over the past couple months, they've been working on their rent-to-rent business, putting both of their efforts into building their rent-to-rent business. It's not going to be long before they're making sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 grand a month from their rent-to-rent business, which is enough to replace both of their salaries if they were working. And again, they're only putting in a couple of hours a day into their rent-to-rent business. Obviously, there can be a bit more time when you get your first deal and you have to go and furnish it, and if you're being quite hands-on with your first few, which I would advise most people to learn the ropes before you start delegating jobs. So they have been doing some extra hours in the evenings, furnishing the properties, and then doing the viewings as well, which eventually they will outsource those jobs, but at the moment it's all very new to them. So I have advised them to do these jobs themselves, and then as time goes on they can start to delegate. So maybe a couple more hours in the evening of work as well, but ultimately they're building a business now that doesn't demand 8 hours a day of work, 50 hours a week of work. They've got 4 or 5 landlords that are offering them properties from using our marketing techniques and tactics. So it won't be long before they're making five grand a month, which was their target. And yeah, another great success story. Again, we've only been working together a few months, if that. Another example, Wes, another one of my students. You would have seen me talking about him on this channel. You would have seen him on the YouTube channel discussing getting his first deal. He's done ever so well. Wes was a debt collector by trade, and when we first spoke he said to me, in his words, he's not getting any younger and he can't do that job forever, right? As you can imagine, that job's probably quite stressful. So he wanted to build a business that allowed him to work less time, so he could spend more time with his family, and just doing whatever he wants to do, traveling, spending time with his loved ones, hobbies, just having more time to himself rather than feeling tied to a job. So he took everything I asked him to do in quite quickly and started implementing, and within, I think, the first month he had his first rent-to-rent deal. He's just got the keys to his 5th rent-to-rent deal. He's quit his job as a debt collector. I think he did that 2 months into our program. He's making probably 4 or 5 grand a month now from his portfolio of rent-to-rents, and yeah, he's flying, and all because he believed in himself. He spoke to me and we decided to work together. That sped up his progress, and now he's working for himself. Basically, he's built a business that makes him more money than he was earning debt collecting, and doesn't need him to work so many hours for it, right? So he's replaced his income. It won't be long before he's probably making 10 grand a month from his business. The speed he's going at, it wouldn't surprise me if he's done that by the end of sort of next year, maybe even halfway through next year. So he's another great example of someone just like you, ambitious, but stuck in a job that they don't enjoy, working a lot of hours, trading time for money. He realised that he wanted more. He realised that there might be a better way, and fast forward a few months and he's replaced his income and he's well on the way to having a 6-figure business. So those are just some stories, guys, and I've got loads more, but I don't want to bore you with too many more. But I just want you to know that these people are just like you. They're normal people. They're human beings, right? They're just motivated and determined, yes, but they're self-aware, I think, is a key trait that they all share, and they value their time, and they've realised that if you just keep working into your 60s, then you miss some of the best years of your life, and you're trading a lot of time that you could be spending with your loved ones and doing things you enjoy for a paycheck. And that's something that these people have realised. So, you know, that's a thought process that they've had, and then they've found me, and all I've done is give them everything I know, share with them everything I'm doing in my business today, and held them accountable, mentored them, and sped them up, and lo and behold, you know, they've all managed to quit their 9-to-5s and or replace their incomes or create incomes from their rent-to-rent businesses, and they're in a much better place than they were prior to working with myself. So if you're watching this video and you're on the fence and you're thinking, is rent-to-rent right for me? Well, if you're anything like any of the people that I mentioned, then it could definitely help you, and it could change your life. You know, I know it sounds quite cliche, but it's true. You know, it completely changed my life 8 years ago, and it's still helping people change their lives today. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you take some inspiration, some motivation from it. If you do want someone to help you get your first few rent-to-rents, whether that be starting your rent-to-rent business or even scaling your existing rent-to-rent business, we've just had a couple new people join the program, Kirk and Bilal. You'll see them on the YouTube channel soon. They already had 3 rent-to-rents when they started working with myself, and we've just helped them get their 4th, and they did that in 29 days. So 29 days into our program, they got another rent-to-rent deal. So we don't just work with people who are starting from scratch, we also work with people who already have a few rent-to-rents and want to scale. So if that's you, then I can help you too. But yeah, if you want someone to help you guys, and you want someone to speed up your progress and stop you from making expensive mistakes, then in the video description below I'll put a link. Click the link, you'll be able to book in a free call with myself. On that call we'll have a chat, see if we're a good fit for each other, and if I'd be a good mentor for you. If so, then great. If not, then that's fine too. I've got enough clients to be working with at the moment. And yeah, just keep watching my YouTube videos, keep learning from my free content. I've got a couple freebies that I give away on my Instagram, so if you want my rent-to-rent toolkit, then DM me the word toolkit on Instagram and I'll send that to you for free. I've also got a free training that I'm giving away at the moment. It's 8 video modules. It's actually part of the rent-to-rent success system that I actually sell to people. My paying clients use this exact system, so I'm giving some of that away for free too. So if you want that, then DM me the word training on Instagram and I'll send that to you for free. I may even put the links to these in the video description below if I remember. But yeah, if you want to work with me, then click the link below, book a free call, we'll have a chat and go from there. If not, keep watching the videos, keep learning from my success students, and I'm sure you'll get some success. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.